Uh, there's my handsome boy.
Oh, recording in progress right from the get. You just jump scare. You got me.
I
How
like to
about
be
that?
upfront.
I feel ambushed. How about
It's good.
that?
It's good. It's good to know that's how a real person feels, though, because that's what I've been doing to people on the podcast.
It
I
literally loads in
start.
and just goes recording in progress
You got to
before you
be
even
on,
said
man. You got to
anything.
be on these days. You need to be with it.
Goodness gracious. Can you hear my heater in the background, by the way, or no? I
To
think the
be
AirPod.
honest, I am not a good person to ask because there's. Can you hear the construction outside?
No, I can just hear you.
I think we're okay. Because I
Okay.
have there's literally a guy like jackhammering outside of
I
my.
can't hear it at all.
Then I can't hear you
Okay.
either. Stay
Perfect.
warm.
I'm trying. It's cold day here in New York. It's like 25 degrees.
Wow. That's
I know.
I think I'm pretty is whitewashed a good word to use?
Definitely not. You could
And we're
say
live. Started
you
now.
could say acclimated. You could say you're acclimated maybe to the climate that you're in now, but definitely not whitewashed.
Well, I wouldn't say it. I asked if it was
Right. Not that you would say that.
right, of course. I'm pretty
Acclimated
acclimated to the temperature.
to the new climate that you're in. It's quite literally the word for what you're describing. Yeah.
Stuff
Oh,
up me.
we can start
So,
over now. Recording in progress.
oh, my tummy.
Well,
Oh, I'm pretty
there you go.
acclimated to the climate. I'm good.
Okay. So it's warm there.
It's warm. It's what I'm
Wow.
trying to say. It's
I see.
I forget that it's well, I actually a birdie told me it had the classic East Coast 58
Oh
degrees
yeah.
the other day. You get a little tease.
We had 75 here 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
We know what those days in New
Wait.
York City feel like too. You get a
Yeah.
nice little
Oh,
spring feeling.
oh yeah. Those days just feel expensive. You're just outside and you just want to spend money at places.
That's
That's what those
right.
days feel like. You just decide that you need to like go to Sweet Green and get nice coffee all of a
Mm,
sudden.
I love that. I love that.
But, you know, not today.
That's
Today it's just expensive because the heat's
that's what I
on.
was to say. It's a different kind
So,
of price.
no, yeah. No con and bill. Wow.
Oh man. Hey, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. How was your the conference
Oh,
out in
it's cool.
Vegas?
It was
Yeah.
well, I haven't been to one. I haven't been to something like that since I don't think since I went to Jordan and uh DeFranco's like seminar that they had at Solace since so
Oh
that was like
wow. So a long time ago.
2018, 2019
Yeah, yeah,
maybe. Um
yeah.
and that's like the only thing I've ever been to for like these conferences. So it was cool. It
Yeah.
was it was good to like get back into like a learning environment, but also to
Right.
just like meet people and see like other people in our industry and just like
Right.
put a face to names that you only see on social media.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta ask you, man, is that a normal sized whoop you're wearing?
This,
I don't know if it's
does
just how
it look
close it is to
forward?
the camera. It looks like you're wearing a sweatband. Now it looks normal. It was so close that I was like, what is that? It
Well,
looks so big.
TV adds a few pounds to things.
Apparently, man. You got the Magnum whoop
I gotta
going
tell you,
on.
man, your wrist looks tiny, but that woo,
It's huge, man.
it's just the stone, it's the color, right?
Now it looks normal.
Does
Yeah.
it look normal?
When it was like this, it just looked like it was like four finger lengths, like you were wearing a
Trying
sweatband.
something different, man. Bringing back
Wow,
2005. Heavy
very
sweats.
cool. Heavy sweats. Oh, well, I'm
Uh,
glad the conference was good though.
yeah, it was cool.
Where was it in Vegas? Was it at like a casino hotel type
Yeah,
situation?
it was at the Virgin Hotel. Um, yeah.
Checks out.
I don't know. I'm not a good Vegas person. I'm not. You know
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I don't
It's not
partake.
really your cup of tea.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
not my
yeah.
tea. Like I like a good show. I would go to a show, you know,
Yeah.
but
Did you go to a show?
I did no, I did not.
So you, by definition, you wouldn't go to a show.
I wouldn't. Oh, it's somewhere pretty expensive, you know. They're like
Yeah,
150
for
bucks
sure.
plus, and I was like, I don't really feel like
Wow.
spending that, you know. So, but you
No,
know, so I guess I'm not a Vegas man, you know. It's
that's no interest. I don't think I am either. I have no desire to go.
yeah. Well, you just got
Never
back
been.
from DC.
I
You
was
were in
down. I was
DC.
in DC for like 20 hours. I wasn't even down there for a day.
Can you share what you were
But that's
doing
like
or?
no. I was. What yeah, I was there for a. I was shooting a campaign for Russell, like Russell Athletic.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Is that like the little
No.
symbol?
No. It's laying around here. So no, I'm not wearing it right now. They're not
Oh,
paying me to wear it right now. No,
that's
I was down
cool.
there. I was down there shooting a campaign for them. I was down there for literally. I took the Amtrak down Friday evening, shot
Wow.
Saturday morning, and then took the train back up at like noon on Saturday. But
Holy
I
crap.
think that goes. We'll post that tomorrow. I think
hmm
is the posting of the 22nd. So assuming you don't publish this afternoon, I think
No, this will
it'll
be.
already be out. Yeah.
I don't want to
So
ruin the campaign, but
yeah, just
tough.
really just out it right there. No, so that I was down there shooting that, but I mean it was a super quick trip. DC's easy enough to get to, like just like 3.5 hours maybe on the train, like Amtrak. So
That's really cool for me to see because I feel like when I met you, well, I'm one, it was COVID, so nobody was going anywhere. But two,
yeah, that's true.
you were glued at your in-person job, so I feel like you didn't take as many
Oh
of these
yeah,
trips.
yeah, it was nice. I mean, it's easy to do obviously when they're like, I mean, it's like work, you know what I mean? Like they pay you to do it. So it's like it's just a different type of job, I guess. Like I mean it's
hmm
fun. Don't get me wrong. It's like fun
Yeah.
to like travel down and like do things like
hmm
that. But it's just another kind of work, you know. It was fun though. I think it turned out really well. They were very pleased with it, so
That's awesome.
I
Isn't
think
that
it'll be good.
isn't that cool that finally the handsome boy is getting recognized for being athletic and handsome?
About time, no, it's good. It's been fun to like have opportunities like this, and
Yeah.
it's interesting how it's like once you get one opportunity, it just
Mm,
snowballs into the next. Like work begets work with that type
yeah.
of thing, which has been fun. It's been nice to like do that type of thing, lean into that type of thing, and just
hmm
I don't know. I feel like when we were coming up into like fitness, that was such a I don't want to say talk. I mean, the like school of thought that we came from. It was very much so like if you're not like coaching clients for free, you're a piece of shit. And then like you get into the industry and you start doing things, and it's like, well,
hmm
if this is a very real side of it as well, to like
Yeah.
get paid to like represent brands and that type of thing. And
Yeah.
I feel like being able to do that type of stuff, it just opens way more doors than I feel like we were told it was going to close. You know what I mean?
So true.
So it's been good. It's like I said, it's been fun. Like you said, like 2 years ago, the idea of just like going down on a train for like less than 24 hours and like
Mm,
shoot a campaign, do like sponsored stuff, like just wasn't like a thing that was like, if anything, it was like taboo or something like that. I
yeah.
feel like in our kind of little world we were in.
hmm
Like I said, in my experience, like that's only made everything else better. So
Yeah. Well, I think
you know?
it is funny that you touch on that because I think it was in some parts of me not as definitely not as much anymore since I've worked with a few brands, but when you're right, when we were like coming up into like I'll say like our niche of the industry, like more of like the coaches type of people and
Yeah.
not like influency type of fitness, I guess you could say.
Yeah, the people who are like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would describe it as that. The people who like came up to like be coaches to coach and
Yeah.
like, worked with like coaches and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it was
Yeah.
all hyper education based, like
Hmm.
any, kind of call it not even corporate, just like capitalist side of that was almost like frowned upon. Like I said, it was
Yeah.
kind of like you should be begging to coach people for free, and that's how you become a good coach. And if you
Right.
do anything other than that, you're like one of these like
You're a
foodie
sellout.
influencers on Instagram or something like that. And
Hmm.
like I
Yeah.
said, I feel like if anything in the past year, the more I've done that type of stuff, the more it's like hasn't detracted from my coaching in the slightest. If anything,
Yeah.
it's like built my coaching business more and
Hmm.
has given me the opportunity to like help even more people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah,
Good.
it was a
You had to break
interesting.
through
I
that
feel like
wall.
branching. Yeah, I mean, I think like breaking out of that, not niche, but you know what I mean, like that. I feel
I
like
don't know.
coming up in that world of like that of thinking like this is what a good coach looks like, and this is what like a shitty coach looks like,
Hmm.
and anything outside of that is just like pretty black and white. Is like
Hmm.
oh, like whatever. I mean, I would say now I'm way more cognizant of like brands I say yes to. Like
Mm.
I say no all the time. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mean this in like a pat myself on the back way, but I get emails every week from brands being like, "Oh, would you like do this, shoot this, like whatever?" And I say no to 99% of them just because
Oh,
it's like it feels like if it's anything, it like cheapens kind of
right.
what I do, or like cheapens call it like the brand that like I've
Hmm.
created for that type of thing. But I think as long as you're not like being scummy about it, like I don't take like supplement whatever, like I said, the amount of things where it's like, oh, like, would you promote our drink or our, whatever? Like, I don't do
Hmm.
that type of stuff. That's like harmful and would be against something you would recommend a client to do. But like
Right.
otherwise, I don't think there's anything. I mean, there isn't anything wrong with it. Like I said, if anything, it's just opened up more doors and more opportunities to doing that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it was like a it's like because we did grow in that part of the industry, it was looked as like, you're a sellout or you don't have the best intentions of other people if you're working with brands or you're promoting this, right? But it's like I like how you it's not that like you're still a coach, but you're also somebody who is exploring other opportunities for things you are interested in, things your clients are interested in, and just opportunities also to meet people who are doing similar things like you. I think that's like a great way that you reframed it so that it feels good to you and it continues to bring opportunities that are more in alignment with what you are and how you want to be, my man. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, but I think honestly, like I feel like in the past year and a half, like leaning into like who I
Hmm.
actually am as opposed to like what I thought like someone in my position should be was like
Right.
making that like hard left turn away from like, you know what, I've been doing things this way because I thought that's like what I was supposed to be doing to like
Right.
I'm just gonna be me and like lean hard into that
Hmm.
has exploded like from a business standpoint, from like an opportunity standpoint. I feel like as soon as I made that like hard left turn into like instead of trying to like fit into what I think we were like supposed to be in that way
Right.
and just being like, I'm just gonna lean into like the stuff that I like and
Hmm.
like the more I've done that, the better things have gone for me in that way.
Yeah.
So like I mean, it's definitely like a weird thing to break out of because, as you know, it was such that side of like the industry was so taboo in the world that like you and I were brought up in.
Hmm.
So, but like I said, then you take a bite of the apple and eat in there, and turns out it tastes pretty good, baby.
Money talks, baby. Money talks.
But honestly though, I will say like it, it is one of those things where it's like I feel like it was framed in a way it's like people won't trust you, you lose trust in your audience, all the rest of it. It's like, dude,
Hmm.
if anything, my clients are so hyped to be like, oh, I was like telling my friend you're like down in DC doing the thing. Like they think it's cool, they share it, they
Yeah.
like are like happy for me because it's like I'm still there at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, like
Right.
coaching them the same way I have for years. Like it doesn't detract from that. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yep.
and yeah,
No,
so I think it's
for sure.
all good things.
It is all good things. I think, like I said, it's if you were to stay, yeah, I think that's a good value note for other people too. Is like it's good to change. Like it's important to change, especially when that change is more in alignment with who you are and who you want to be. It's like when
Yeah,
you have that identity and you have a firm idea of who you are, then it doesn't feel wrong. It just feels like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It just feels like I'm going in the right direction.
yeah, yeah. And I think we all see, especially on social media now, there's like cookie cutter versions of
Hmm.
coaches. You know what I mean? And it's like it's like a dime a dozen. It's all
Hmm.
they all portray themselves the exact same way, create
Yep.
all the exact same content, like, and it's all the exact same thing.
Hmm.
And like I said, just trying to like not fit into that has, I don't know. Like I said, it's like, oh well, that's what you're supposed to do. Like
Yeah.
if you wanna have a social media presence as a coach, like the stuff you need to do needs to look like this, and it needs to like always like help people, and needs to always whatever. And if it doesn't, then you're no better than like,
Mm,
some
true.
scummy, whatever person.
Yeah.
Um, and like I try to balance out like with what I do, too. Like I would say like my social media now is like entirely like, just like creative, aesthetic, whatever type stuff. I don't post
Hmm.
any like real hard coaching stuff on social media anymore. But like I have the outlet in my newsletter where it's
Hmm.
like, I can build an audience on social media doing the things that I like to do and showing that side of me. But then like for people who want more, there's still like in-depth articles or
Hmm.
newsletters that I write about like coaching principles for the people who do want that. It's not like
Right.
you just forsake that side of things because one thing like is flashier. But I think just like finding that not niche, but just like going my own way and doing my own thing has
Hmm.
been much better than trying to fit into like I said, that cookie cutter type
Yeah.
you know coach that we see everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. And I think yeah, a lot what you said is like I said, I think that aligns with a lot of people because they think, that you should there's like a direct path that you should be doing or like specific content you should be making. But I think the cool part about you is like, cause you used to have just like an aesthetics page. I remember when I first met you,
Oh yeah. Because that
you
was
had
like actually me. It was like
right.
that side of things. Yeah.
And that
That
was
was
and
just something
that's
I did for fun. Yeah.
right. And that's cool for me to see because I saw you when you like I found it by accident. You were like you kind of were a little bit like hesitant to like share that part, right? Or if I did share
Yeah.
it, you're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, could you not share that?" Because it's like it was like you, right? It's like a vulnerable version of you that you weren't at that
Right.
time ready to share with like your coaching side, right? So I think
Yeah.
from my perspective, it's really cool to see that you finally were like, fuck it. Like, let me like show what I am and other things I love and just bring that all together. And like now it's allowed you to have this like growth and opportunities, right? So I think that's the cool
Yeah.
part. I've seen the ABR aesthetic, shout out, or
There it is. That's what it was. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what it was. That was like the fun like stuff that I actually enjoyed that I would like
yeah.
do for like a creative hobby that
Hmm.
like did really well. And then I had like my fitness page that was like, the same type of, that cookie cutter type whatever content. And then
Hmm.
like I said, just taking like a hard left turn from that, being like, you know what? Like I really don't care. I kind of hate doing this stuff anyway. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna like do it my way and do that. And like I said, ever since I made that shift, it's completely changed like everything, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, so
So
yeah.
let's talk about some shifts you have made because you just ran. the Paris Marathon again, right?
Paris half. I go
Paris.
back to
Oh,
run the
half.
full in 2 weeks. But yeah,
Oh, cool.
so I ran the half, yeah, a
So
couple weeks
you're going
ago.
to Paris, and that's cool to say too, right? Like you're going to Paris. You were
Yeah.
just in Paris two
The
weeks ago,
travel
and you're
side
going
has been
back.
nice. I'm going back.
Yeah.
It was a nice feeling leaving Paris, knowing I was going to be back in 3 weeks. That's for sure.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I ran the Paris half in the beginning of March,
Mm-hmm.
which was great. Went well. To have like a good race there, and then
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I go back in a couple weeks to do the full, and hopefully that goes well too. But
Yeah. Well, I
um,
think
yeah,
the last time we talked, I think on the podcast was right before I moved to San Diego, I think. It was like in October. And I think you were actually gearing up to do the Paris Marathon in 2023, I
or
believe.
would that have been New York Marathon?
Maybe it was New York.
Yeah, because New
It
York
was
was
New
in
York.
November. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Um, so and you were kind of talking about how like, your body was breaking down a little bit and sort of like the recovery aspects and all that. I feel like watching you now, have there's been a lot of shifts in like your training methodology and practice? Because it feels like you're getting faster. It feels like you're getting faster and stronger, and your your endurance is
No,
improving.
I definitely think like training for my first marathon was a completely different experience than training
Mm,
now, and I feel like I learned a lot from that. Like anything, it just comes with experience. I mean, a
hmm
lot of it is you just become better at things. Like you
mm,
just, the aches and pains that you maybe feel or a little, injuries that you might get, just overuse type things, doing something for the first time kind of fade
hmm
away. And then you like focus on getting better. But like you go from like 0 to 1 to like 1 to 2. And going from zero
Right.
to one is like the hardest thing. Um, because like I remember when I mean, you still hit a point, like it's still tough. Like I'm 2 weeks, I just started my taper. So like you taper the 2 weeks as in you like reduce your running volume like 1 to 2 weeks before a race. And I like just started my taper. And at the beginning of that taper, it's like you're at your highest like cumulative volume. So in terms of like aches and pains and all the rest of it, like this past week and this week is like probably the worst I'll feel because it's the most volume I've done and the
mm,
like highest mileage throughout the week. And like I did my longest runs up until now. But it only gets easier the more you do it. And I think
mm,
doing New York this past November, and then knowing I was going to be racing a half in March, a full in April, and then I just signed up and kind of forgot I did, but I got entered the lottery for the Brooklyn half in May, and I got into that. So
Whoa.
I guess I'm doing
Cool.
that, which should be cool. Which now I'm kind of like, when I got the credit card charge from New York Roadrunners for 150 bucks, I was like, ah, shit, I didn't didn't think I was going to get into
Forgot
that.
to check
Guess
that.
yeah, I guess I'm doing that now. But I like coming out of doing New York in November and
hmm
not like really stopping training or stopping running
hmm
and just kind of continuing to maintain that like strong base, I would say, kind of refocus my training on a like heavier strength training period to call it like rebuild after like a marathon block going in
Yeah.
November and then starting like a 16-week training block going
Mm,
into this full marathon. Like I've gotten so much faster going into this one.
hmm
Um, to the point where like I'm kind of expecting to have like a pretty good time for my April
Yeah.
race. Just because instead of just like going like, oh, I did the thing, now I'm going to stop doing it for a few months and then start a training block in a few months, as
hmm
opposed like doing that as opposed to like I'm just going to like try to maintain the same level of fitness
hmm
and then start a training block instead of going like down and then back up to where you were. You kind of stay where you were and you can just like continually get better,
mm,
which has made I would say like this training block feel so much better because it was less like, oh, can I do the miles?
right.
It's more of like, how can I get faster in these? Like, okay, run like a 3:30 in New York. let's try and get that closer to like 3:15 in
Mm,
April, and like really trying to like shave time off and get faster.
right.
Um, I mean, I ran my watch time was a 1:29, so I'm sticking to that. But I think my chip time was a 1:30
Yeah.
when I ran the what's it called, the
The
half,
half. Yeah.
which is about a 650 mile for the whole thing,
Yeah.
which is something that like a year ago I would have definitely couldn't have done. So that was
Hmm.
like a fun benchmark to see. Um, so yeah, I guess get back to like the initial kind of point there. It's like it's fun to like build as opposed
Yeah.
to just like doing it. Plus, like I feel like being in like really good shape is like, I mean, it's really fun in a way. I know like
Yeah.
that sounds kind of silly, maybe like in the same way we talk about like, oh, being strong is like fun. Like when you
Right.
feel it, you know it and you feel it.
Right.
Um, but being like really endurance strong is like a different kind of feeling that I just
Mm,
really have enjoyed, I would say.
yeah.
Like it feels like a superpower to just be like, oh, like I could just run for hours on end, like at a decent
Yeah.
clip. It's just kind of like I just never get fatigued from stuff. Like, like even going to the
I made a
um
face.
um but no,
Bravo.
it's like it's like I would say tip of the cap to you.
Mr.
No, I would say
Saboteur.
like going into the full or the half was like a really like confidence instilling thing from the
Hmm.
standpoint of like, it's like 13 miles, but like in
Right.
the weeks leading up to that, because I just did it while training for this full marathon, I'd run more than 13 miles every Saturday for the last like 5 weeks prior. So
Right.
going into it, it was like, well, this is just like I've done this a million times. Like this distance
Mm,
isn't like something I have to worry about. And that's like a
right.
really fun feeling to
Yeah.
have, just like being in like very good shape. It's very, it can be very self-perpetuating. Like you just don't want to let it drop. So you just like,
Hmm.
like coming after this, I don't have like a big race on the calendar. I don't know if I even want one, but I'll probably still do like long runs and still continually run just because
Mm,
that feeling of what it feels like to be at that level,
hmm.
like maintaining that feels so much better than the idea of losing it and trying to build it back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, a couple of things I really like that you said is like your baseline is upgraded, right? So sort of where when you
Yeah.
started, you were like, can I run this amount of miles, right? Now you're at the point where it's like, how fast can I run these amount of miles? And also your confidence improves. Like if you told me like, hey, you're gonna run 13 miles, I'd be like, fuck, because I've never ran 13 miles in my life, you know?
Right.
So for
Yeah.
you, that is really cool that you have that confidence to be like, oh, 13 miles. I've done this so many freaking times.
Yeah.
It becomes it almost allows you to or I should ask you this, does it allow you to sort of take in the moment more because there doesn't feel as much pressure to complete
I
it or finish it or anything that way?
I mean, I think going into I think like a full is very different. I mean, I think
Mm,
the fun thing that I really enjoy about running is the fact that you have that. I love like the training block, but with like a race day at the end of it. Like that's such a, I don't know, like it's a fun thing. I mean, it's scary, it's fun, it's like
hmm.
very, it makes you very like anxious in a
Yeah.
way. So like, yes, I would say like, when I'm training for a full marathon and I have like a half marathon race that I'm doing in the middle of it,
Hmm.
like it feels in a way like, oh, I've kind of like, to use a baseball metaphor, it's like I've been in the on deck circle with like a donut on my bat. So then when
Right.
you like take the donut off and you're like, well, I've been running, 15, 16, 17 miles the past
Hmm.
several weekends, and now you're asking me to run 13. It's like, oh, 13 is like a light run at this point in the
Right.
program. Now,
Right.
granted, like you're doing it at a much faster clip. So it's
Hmm.
still like, you know, there's still that side of it where it still is like, it's not like you wouldn't do a half marathon at the same pace you would do a full marathon, obviously,
Right.
because it's the distance. So you can really push yourself a lot more and go
Hmm.
faster in that way. But I think what I really enjoy about that is the like, that race day feeling of like you can have, for better or worse, like an amazing 16 weeks of training
Hmm.
and then just have either the best day of your life or like the worst day.
Yeah.
Um, which is, it's like scary, it's nerve-wracking. Like, it's the same thing like in the gym where it's like, oh, like some days you have it and some days you don't.
Right.
And like, some days you like set PRs in the gym and you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I'm so strong. Like this is the best I've ever felt. You could
Right.
go to the gym 2 days later and have the worst workout of your life and wonder how you ever even could lift the weights you lifted 2 days ago.
Right.
But like the pressure that comes with that on a race is like there is no redo. Like there's
Hmm.
just unless you just set the next finish line to chase.
Right.
So I think that's where a lot of the call it not anxiety, but the nervousness comes from in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. The and can you talk about the New York City Marathon? Because that was like your dream for a long time. How did it
Yeah.
feel to actually run it? Like, what was the atmosphere like? Like, what were you feeling? I guess what were your expectations
Yeah.
going into it? What was the actuality?
I would say my expectations were pretty high. I was like aiming for probably between like a 3:15 and 3:20 finish. And it's funny, like on the day, I feel like there was like the race and then there was like the things around the race. Like, I mean, it's a crazy day. I think it's the best day in New York City all year. It's like it's just so insane. I mean, whether you're running it or not, it's like such a cool day in the city. It's like one of the few things where like everyone in the city shows up for, and it's
Yeah.
very apolitical. It's just a celebration of like New York City and the people, and it's such a cool day. So
Mm,
to finally be on like that side of it, I mean, the day itself is like it's wild. I mean, I feel like you get I mean, it's not like an uncommon thing to get like pretty emotional, especially like the start line. I
right.
never feel, or I haven't felt like emotional like crossing a finish line. But when you're standing on the Verrazano, I was in the first wave of that, and you're on top of the Verrazano Bridge, and you just see Manhattan in the distance, and like
Mm,
you're there, and it's like you're with thousands of people, and like it's not just that feeling of like this is like the dream, this is New York City. There's that side of it, but then there's also the side of like 16 weeks of my life is like all those early mornings, all those runs in the pouring rain, all those like horrible runs, all the great runs, all the just so many hours that go into it, all leads to one moment. And like that's a very like overwhelming kind of feeling. And I definitely was like emotional in my like starting corral, because you just realize that you're a part of this thing that's so much bigger than you. So that I mean that was amazing. Now in terms of the race itself, like it was definitely like not my day. Like I think I finished with 3:31, which is still like a good time. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but I was thinking I was going to get like 3:15. Everything in my training for the whole time I trained for it was like I was trending way faster in my
Right.
training. So when it came to the actual race, I was admittedly pretty disappointed with my time. I cramped pretty badly, but I also knew when I was on the Verrazano, within the first 2 miles,
Yeah.
I was like, I could just tell like something was off. It just wasn't my
Yeah.
day.
Right.
And the race itself is kind of a grind for me. Um, but in terms of like the actual event and the support, it's like if you ever watch like the Tour de France, you've got like these roads with just thousands of people on the side and they're just like screaming at you. Like every inch of the marathon in New York
Yeah.
is like that. Like it's crazy how loud it is from start to
Yeah.
finish. Like,
Yeah.
and each borough is different and has a different feel to it. But I mean, the course is hard. Like it's notoriously like the hardest marathon major. It's hilly. Like all
Mhm.
the things people say about it, in that regard are true. And like I said, it's a super hard race. But my actual race experience is definitely like a grind. Like
Yeah.
which I think is another thing I enjoy about this endurance sport, like training type thing, is that it's a completely different type of pain, I would say, like
Mm,
mentally and physically than anything else, like there's like just you really have to like if you like really care, right? Like if you're really trying for a time and you're really fighting, you just won't stop. Like there's a real battle there that's like
yeah.
really hard to replicate in other types of sport or other types of training. Um, that I think you get in these types of things where it's just like
Mhm.
it's literally you versus you, and you're like I said, I mean, to use New York as the example, I started cramping at like the 16-mile mark for the
Oh,
last
wow.
10 miles of that race, which are the hardest 10 miles of the race. That's like right when you go over the Queensboro Bridge, and you're like
Hmm.
up First Ave and then back down. Um, I was like cramping so bad, and it was just like you just have to like get in that cave of just like how long can you just be in pain and
Right.
without stopping.
Right.
And I feel like that's a really unique thing about it that like if you take it seriously, like I think everybody who takes it seriously has those moments. And you
Hmm.
just can't replicate that in like any other sport I've played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start to like cramp and in the gym or wherever you just like stop, or you just
Right.
like get pulled or there's like a team to hide behind or you get
Right.
subbed out or anything like that. But you know, that's something that I feel like there's like a certain mental challenge that comes with like endurance type stuff that
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the more I do it.
Hmm.
Not in the moment. I mean, it sucks. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I mean, like you're like fighting everything in your head that's telling you to just stop.
Hmm.
But then when you do it, like that feeling of like I wanted to quit for 10 miles and I
Yeah.
didn't is like the best. I mean, that's like the best feeling in the world. Like when you
Yeah.
cross that finish line.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that
Hey,
was a
well,
long-winded answer.
no, I mean that's and I think that's the cool thing too is like, obviously being in that New York City environment, I think it's very emotional. Like I imagine like for you as you're running it, it kind of feels surreal, right? Because it's like you
Oh yeah,
you've been living there for almost 10 years now, right? And
yeah. Well,
uh
and also living there and training there. Like I'd
yeah.
run those roads so many times, like
Mm,
being so acutely familiar with it. There was nothing that like surprised me on it,
mm,
like you go into Central Park and it's like, God, I've ran so many miles in Central Park,
yeah.
that like you know exact like every crack in the road by the time you're actually doing it in the race,
Hmm.
which is kind of unique, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah. A little bit of a competitive advantage maybe. Hmm?
I think if anything, it isn't. Like
Really?
I feel like having done races elsewhere, almost not knowing what to expect and just
Mm,
having to like tackle it head on,
yeah.
like as it hits you.
Mm,
I think I enjoy that more than knowing like I know exactly when this hill is coming
yeah.
and
So
I
you almost
hate
get in your
this
head a
hill
little bit.
and I've
Yeah.
done it a million. Yeah, you like know exactly when like
Yep.
you're gonna have to face that, and I kind of
Yep.
hated that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Good.
I mean the day, like I said, it's such a. I don't. I may do it this year. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
Would you
yeah,
like to declare here right
maybe.
now?
Yeah, I could probably get a bit if I really wanted to, but I don't know if I want
Yeah.
to. We'll
I feel like
see.
that's where you were last time too, though. Like after you
Yeah.
finished the Paris marathon.
I mean, I'll throw a huge caveat on this, and something I'm not shy about is that like I really enjoy this stuff. Like I enjoy the training, I enjoy the community, I enjoy all the opportunities that have come from doing these things. But like I don't love running so much that you'll catch me doing
Yeah.
the Jersey City Marathon.
Right.
Like I just don't. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'll do Paris, I'll do London, I'll do Berlin, I'll do New York,
Right.
I'll do somewhere cool. It's like or like a big one or like a major city or somewhere that
Right.
allows me to travel and do things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't love running so much that you're going to catch me chasing PRs in like Minnesota just because there happens to be a race I can sign up for. Like I'm not
Right.
that level of devotion to the
Right.
sport, I would say.
Well, I think, and I mean, I think a lot of it comes from, I guess, would you say a lot of it, this interest of endurance sports comes from your grandpa?
Yeah, I would say a little. I mean, he was a big triathlete and stuff.
Hmm.
That was like his major sport, like a serious competitive triathlete back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely think when I first got into it, I mean, cycling definitely came from him. I've been a cyclist for a long time. Um, and that was definitely called my like endurance thing. I mean, nowadays I wouldn't like race, but I would do like, 100-mile rides and stuff on like a Saturday, like real distance on a bike. And that definitely came from him. Um, and he definitely was like a good when I was getting into it, kind of
Yeah.
foot in the door, and that way someone to like talk to about it. I
Hmm.
think that honestly, the running like and doing endurance type stuff mostly just came from I wanted to just like do something different that I hadn't done.
Mm.
Um, and I wanted to train in a different way. And I think part of it, honestly, too, is as a kid, all I wanted to be, and you could probably attest to this too, is like to be a professional athlete when I
Yeah.
grew up. And I was decidedly not blessed with those genes that
Hmm.
allowed me to become a professional athlete. Most of us aren't. Um, but doing things like this
Yeah.
allows you to, especially with like what I do for a living, I approach it as a hobby, but with like, essentially, I would say at this point in my career, with like an expert background in things like
Yeah.
performance and training and nutrition and all of that stuff, so to be able to apply the things that I have learned and know that I do for a living onto
Hmm.
myself and treat
Right.
myself as an athlete and to go all in on that and to still have, you know, like race days, you're still, you show up to run the New York Marathon, you're technically running it with the top marathoners in the world, the professional
Right.
runners, and there aren't many sports that afford you the opportunity to be like, it's not like, oh, your rec basketball league plays in
Right.
like the same overarching league that LeBron plays in. Like it's just
Right.
that's not how it works. So I think a lot of it has been that feeling of like, oh, I get to like enter a training block and I get to like really, gear all my nutrition and my recovery and my lifestyle and the clothes I wear and the gear I buy and everything like that is all geared towards like one sport and one event. And I
Hmm.
think it scratches that itch of like, I make no qualms about the fact like I'm not running like a, 2:30 marathon. I'm not
Hmm.
like a hyper elite runner or something like that. But, if you take it seriously enough, you can like work towards that and treat yourself in the same way that like you can live out that fantasy in a way that I think
Hmm.
so many of us have,
Right.
and apply yourself in the same way, which
Hmm.
I think is, I mean, that's a huge motivating factor for
Yeah.
me,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. For sure. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think it does appeal to the athletes in us, right? Even though we're not professional athletes, like I think it appeals to the reason a lot of us got started with whether it's training or nutrition or sports, like you wanted to get better in some way. And I think that is a good
Yeah.
point you made where it's like you are running with like these freakishly nasty athletes who are completing the New York Marathon in like under 3 hours, right? Like insane
Oh,
times.
yeah. Closer to 2 hours. I mean, just a funny story about that. When I was in Paris racing for the half, I was at this, you do like usually the day before a race, do what's called a shakeout run, which is usually like a 5 or 6K, like super easy run you do um, the day before a race. And I went to like this shakeout run event and I didn't know it, but there were like a couple of the like professionals were there. I knew there were some like Kenyan guys that came to the race. I didn't know that they were like
Hmm.
professionals. And I was just kind of talking to him afterwards, after the run. And I was like, oh, well, like, is there like a time you're going for or anything like that? And he just goes, yes, I'd like to win. And I was like, oh, got it. Cool. You're trying to win tomorrow. Like
That's
he
crazy.
came in, I think he came in third place. He ran like a 1 hour and like 1 minute half marathon, which is like a
Wow.
sub 5 minute mile, like just
Wow.
insane. But like you share the field with those people,
Yeah.
which like I said, it's a cool part of the course. If you
Yeah.
ran Tokyo this, a couple weeks ago, you ran it with, Kipchoge, the greatest marathon runner of all time. He
Wow.
just happened to be in a different corral than you, which is
Wow.
like a cool part of the sport, I think.
Yeah. And it is also a funny thing. Like we've been talking about like completing or getting your best time. And then there's a whole other factor of like, I want to come in first place. It's like
Yeah.
you also forget
Like,
that it's a
oh,
race.
you and I are two completely different just things. Yeah. Like this guy's competing to win and has like
Right.
contracts behind it
Right.
and everything. And I'm
Right.
just there. Yeah.
That's
But like I said,
crazy.
it's such a unique thing about the sport. What's really cool too is for the Olympics this summer, there's the Olympics are in Paris this year, and for the Paris marathon, like the not the Paris marathon that I'm running, but the Olympic marathon is open to be run in.
Mm,
So essentially, that course, that field can be run in.
mm-hmm.
Like you could run the Olympic marathon just as
Wow.
a person. Yeah.
Wow.
Like not like literally at the same time. Obviously, not like you're starting with them,
Right.
but you can still run the Olympic marathon with them, which is such a cool
Yeah.
thing to do, like participate in the Olympics technically.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you could say you're an Olympic athlete if you really wanted
Yeah,
to
exactly.
go. I
Get those
competed.
rings tattooed. Yeah. Yeah.
I was there.
Right.
That's
Oh
pretty
yes.
amazing. Uh, what else you got going
Yeah.
on?
That's kind of the big thing. Like I said, I go back to Paris in 2 weeks for that.
Hmm.
Um, and then the half marathon in Brooklyn in
Yeah.
May. Um, and then yeah, I don't know what I'll do. Kind of like spring, summer. I
Hmm.
kind of want to get more back into cycling and stuff.
Yeah.
Probably just be able to lift again in a more serious way, right?
Hmm.
Like I think right now, when I'm training for these things, it's like a lower body rehab type
Mm.
training
Yeah.
thing, and then I essentially just do like a bodybuilding upper body split to like not look like shit as a runner, frankly.
Right.
Um, I mean, I remember one day I like posted a video of me like doing chest flies or something, and some guy responded to it and was like, "Why are you doing chest flies if you're like running, like training for a marathon?"
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I responded, I was like, because I don't want to look like shit when I run a marathon. That's why.
Because I don't want to look like a flat man, my man. I want these pecs bouncing when I
Yeah,
cross that finish line.
exactly. I'm trying to look dice when I,
That's
not emaciated when I
right.
cross that finish
You think
line.
Russell calls me because I don't train flies? Are you kidding me? I train flies for Russell.
Exactly. He
I
knows.
get it.
Um, but yeah, I think doing more of that type of training.
Yeah.
I miss like making gains
Oh
in
yeah.
the gym and
Yeah.
doing that type of thing. But I'll probably continue running and doing that just because, like I said, too, like like running and participating in these things and going to these cities and all the rest of it has like
Hmm.
opened so many doors to me that I never thought possible. Like I would
Yeah.
say running the Paris Marathon last year was like a life-changing event for me in terms of
Yeah.
the doors that opened. So I think just staying in that world and really leaning into it and trying to get better. And I
Hmm.
think that's probably what I'll just keep doing from a training standpoint, but definitely take some time off after the marathon and, you know, cut
Come
back
to
on the running,
California.
up the lifting, get out to California. I got to get out to
You son of a
California.
bitch.
Hard, man. I've been
Son of a
busy.
bitch.
It's not an Amtrak away, my man.
Yeah, it's a
I
shame
wish it
it's not.
was.
Would you take the train?
Fuck no, dude.
Probably easier
What?
to fly.
Yeah, definitely easier to fly. God knows I got plenty of miles I'm sitting on from these
Oh,
flights.
good.
So
There we go. Awesome.
yeah, I would love to do that. But yeah, the spring's just been busy.
Yeah, well, that's when all your races are, or the fall.
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely this summer want to get away and do something else, like get
Hmm.
out to California and do other things. But
Yeah, come on down. Um,
I don't
what
know.
where can people find you, and then where where is what's the you're doing you're writing through emails right now, so what's all like the
Oh
resource?
yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm really only active on Instagram now. I deleted
Hmm.
TikTok off my phone about 8 months ago and never looked back. That was a
Hmm.
great decision, by the way.
Yeah.
I know you love TikTok, but I just hated it. I
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. But yeah, just Instagram at Alex Rosen Fitness.
Hmm.
That's where you can see all the good stuff. And
That's right,
then
baby.
for more exactly, more deep dive educational and just like I read about other stuff too. My last
Hmm.
newsletter was like kind of like a recap of the trip to Paris. I write
Yep.
about, you know, training, nutrition, not just like educational stuff, but also like my own personal philosophies around those things. It's
Yep.
like I do all that through Substack. I think there's a link in my bio for it if you go to
On
Instagram
Instagram.
or just go on Substack and search Alex Rosen Fitness it's just the ARF newsletter, ARF newsletter on
Hmm.
Substack is where I publish all that stuff like once every 2 weeks.
Cool.
Got to think about what I'm going to write about this coming one. But
Awesome. Hell yeah.
anything you want to see in there,
Huh?
let me know. I said anything you want to see in there.
Personally, well, I liked all the ones. Well, you know what I like, what I have liked from what you've written so far. I've liked the race stories. I've liked the gear. I like looking at like what you're wearing and stuff like that because I've always,
Yeah, I know deep down that like most people love that the most.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know that's like if I have so much of my audience, so to speak, is very
yeah,
centered around like what I use, what I wear, that
yeah,
type of stuff.
yeah.
I
I
love
would,
doing that stuff the most.
yeah, I would say my suggestions were things I would want to read are like personal race stories. Like maybe you met someone, had a great conversation with. Maybe you
Hmm.
had a great croissant or something like that in France, and like this is the picture
I
of it,
intend
and
to.
this is tasty, tasty. Um,
Yeah,
maybe it's yeah, maybe it's just like talking about what to do when cramping or something like that, like recovery stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm the big pretty much stuff you already covered, right? Like you cover recovery, you cover gear, you cover all that stuff. So I would say it's probably just a matter
yeah,
of like figuring out what you want to talk about next, make that your main focus, and then like throw in some other stuff. But you
yeah.
covered it all already,
Hey,
so it's
that's
good.
usually it.
And his
Beautiful.
writing is very good. He's a very good writer.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome, of course.
I better be.
That's
Only have a degree in it.
right.
The professor.
That's right. All right. Well, this is Alex Rosen, by the way. I just, we, I just remember I started recording.
You spooked me with the recording. We've been recording the whole time.
Sure.
I hope.
Well, I just realized the way I do podcasts, it's not structured at all, which is I guess kind of how my personality is. But you know,
Fair.
it allows for good conversations, takes it wherever it
Exactly.
goes. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, dude. Love you. And we'll see you in the next one.
Love
My
you.
most frequent guest.
Adios, sir.